Okay, today's topic is equity-based startup funding. So in this lecture, I'm going to talk about why you might choose to fund your venture using equity as opposed to debt or some other mechanism. I'm going to talk about the two primary equity-based investors, venture capitalists and angel investors. I'll talk a little bit about the capital raising process and investor requirements. So what the investors might be looking for from you. And then I will also talk about the red flags that investors identify that makes them think that maybe your business may not be the best option for them. So why would you choose equity over any other mechanism? Well, selling equity means that somebody actually believes in your business concept, or somebody is willing to take a chance on your business concept. It doesn't require that you make payments in the near term or potentially maybe ever. Although you have to be willing to open up your financial records and perhaps share proprietary information. You may need to talk to a lot of investors before finding the right fit. Pandora, the music streaming company, talked to over 300 potential investors before they found the one that was willing to invest. So that goes without saying that finding an equity investor generally takes a lot of hard work before you actually land an investment. And you should know that you have to cede some of your control if you're going to fund using this mechanism. So you're giving up a piece of ownership, and with that piece of ownership, that means that you lose some decision-making power as well. So who are the players in the equity game? Well, first of all, we have the accredited investor. An accredited investor is an individual with $1 million in assets, and that excludes the value of their home, or they have income of at least $200,000 for the last 2 years if they're single, or $300,000 a year over the last 2 years if they're married. Some accredited investors are also angel investors. Angel investors are high net worth individuals who generally invest in startup or early stage companies. Then we have the venture capitalists, and venture capital is funding that's provided by an organized entity called a venture capital fund, or VC, fund for short. I'll use the term VC in this lecture. VCs generally invest in early stage companies, and they're looking for high growth or high profit potential. A VC fund is an investment fund that's managed by a venture capital group where many investors have pulled their funds together in order to reduce the risk and risk overall by investing in lots of companies. So why would you go about seeking VC capital? Well, you might need it for one of 4 reasons. You might need it in the earlier seed stage to start your company or to prove a concept. You might need it to grow your company, maybe a new market, a new product, something like that. You may need VC funding in order to stay in business. So you've only got maybe 30 days worth of cash left, and you need cash in order for your business to continue. And then VC can also be used for what's called the harvest, or cashing out some or all of the founders. So when we look at funding, VC funding is set up into what we would call funding rounds. The micro-seed stage is the earliest stage that you're looking for investors. And the micro-seed stage generally is money that would allow for the founders to work full-time for a limited period of time on the business concept. And they do this in order to test a concept. So your goal in the micro-seed stage is to demonstrate viability of your concept. Micro-seed investing normally comes from angels, from crowdfunding, which I'll talk about next week. Incubators, which are small, organizations that have invited entrepreneurs to test and develop concepts. Accelerators do the same thing as incubators. Generally, they want a little stake in the company, however, and then also micro VCs. This next stage is what we would call the seed stage. The seed stage is generally used to provide at least the minimum amount of capital that you need to develop proof of your concept. So sometimes the seed stage and the micro-seed stage are interchangeable. Some people consider those to be interchangeable. However, in the seed stage, you've ultimately demonstrated viability. Now you're going out and you're trying to prove it in order to grow the business. Series A is the first round of funding that includes institutional investors. So VC funds, potentially investment banks, things like that. And the goal of the Series A round could be distribution. So you want to increase your distribution, you want to go into a new market, you want to expand your business, or you may be trying to cover some kind of shortfall. After the Series A round of funding, subsequent rounds get alphabetized, Series B, Series C, Series D, on and on, until you ultimately, or not, do what's called an IPO or initial public offering. And there'll be another video posted about the IPO process in the coming days. So those subsequent rounds are alphabetized. You don't need to have a Series B, C, or D. You don't need to have a Series B. However, each funding round that you add, you have to define what your funding will be used for, and that's determined probably between you and your existing investors. So why would you choose angels or VC investment? Well, first of all, maybe you have a preference for equity funding over debt. You don't want to necessarily make payments. VCs and angels generally will want to have experience. A lot of times they have experience in your specific industry. For example, if I'm a food-based business, I'm probably going to look for a VC or an angel investor that has experience in working with food or in working in retail or whatever my business industry or my product category might be. However, VCs will normally ask for participation in exchange for that equity stake. What tends to happen is you will create what's called a term sheet, which I'll talk about probably in the next slide. And in that term sheet, the VC is going to want to demand from you or tell you exactly what they want in exchange for their investment. A lot of times it's board seats, sometimes it's active management. So that's something that you negotiate with your VC, but generally for the business, it's important for you to understand that taking on a VC investor means at some point they're going to want to be cashed out. And generally that cash out involves growing your business in some way, and they're going to have a say-so in that. So what you'll need to be able to present to investors, and this comes from The Art of Startup Fundraising by Alejandro Cremades. And so I think this is a pretty straightforward list. I think I've discussed the need for a business plan. You're going to need to present yourself as organized and prepared. They're going to look at your integrity and your character. They're going to want to make sure that you know the answers to obvious questions about your product and markets. You're going to want to be able to demonstrate that you know what you don't know and don't have, but you have a plan to get it. You're going to need to demonstrate that there's market potential for your product or service. If you're seeking a loan as well as venture capital, you're going to have to submit plans for repayment. Also, if you have an idea, you need to do some planning, and so you might be asked to present plans for additional rounds of funding. If you're just asking for money to get through your first year of operations, then your investor's probably going to want to know, okay, what's your plan for years 2, 3, and 4, or products A, C, D, and E. You're going to want to demonstrate that you've put your heart into the project, that you have and you will keep skin in the game, that you have that you have an investment in the business as well. You're going to have to present that you have sought and you actively seek and receive feedback, that you will have put your heart into the project. I guess I repeated that. I didn't mean to. That you have and will keep skin in the game. Oh, there's another repetition. Sorry about that. Feedback, another repetition. Consideration of their capital and time, there's a new one there, that you and the VC are a good match for one another. You're going to need to demonstrate passion for your product or service, passion for connecting and working with them. You really want to demonstrate that you and the VC or you and the investor are going to be partners in this process. And you're going to want to demonstrate that this is really an opportunity that's going to take them closer to their ultimate goal, whatever that may be. The first thing that they're going to ask for is what's called a one-pager. A one-pager is a single one-page sheet that kind of lays out the business concept and the opportunity for the potential investor. I have for you, this is a one-pager that Boeing did for their 787 Dreamliner, so it's a one-pager for a specific product rather than a business. However, the concept is the same. And there's lots of examples of one-pagers online for you. They'll also ask for a pitch deck, which is your slide presentation that you would make to them, and they're going to ask for your elevator pitch. Also, I will provide you with examples of those in Canvas as well. If you get through the one-pager, the pitch deck, and the elevator pitch, and they're still interested, they might ask to see your due diligence package, which I'll talk about in next slide or two. And if everything is, if they like everything that they see, then they'll ask that you'll negotiate with them what's called a term sheet. The term sheet is really the contract that's going to close the deal for you. It's going to outline what they're going to need to do. It's going to outline what you're going to need to do, how much equity they have, what kind of dividends they're going to get, how much stock they're going to get. So a really important piece of the equity, of the fundraising process. So the due diligence package. The due diligence package is really information that is bundled and transmitted to the potential investor, demonstrates that the opportunities and risks of the investment are accurately reflected in the plan, the pitch, and the one-pager. Generally, it includes bios and resumes for the key team members, including background checks. It might include a SWOT analysis, information about patents or any proprietary technology you're using, information about the valuation, what your company is worth, your exit strategy, how you plan to cash out of the business or how you plan to cash them out of the business, your articles of incorporation, financial information, including your financial forecast statements and bank statements, inventory and asset listing, and really it can include anything that the potential investor requests. They will generally present you with some kind of checklist of everything that they want to see. Some are longer than others. Some may have specific industry specific information if you're looking for an investor that specializes in a specific industry. So that is typically what goes into the due diligence package. So far you like what you hear about venture capital and angel investors and you're wondering where you might find them. There are many conferences that are VC conferences that you can go and attend where all of the VCs come together in order to talk to as many entrepreneurs as they possibly can. Pitch competitions, which I'll be discussing in a further lecture. There's lots of angel investors and VCs that attend pitch competitions, and they take place in San Diego rather regularly. There are VC search engines like VCWiz and Signal, and so those are search engines that are specifically designed to allow you to locate potential VCs. You can always use good old Google. Your local small business development center might be able to link you to some VCs or angel investors. And there's lots of angel networks out there available for you. San Diego has a couple of angel networks. I'll post links to those on Canvas so you can see who they are and where they're at, and maybe do a little bit of research in order to identify if maybe a pitch to them might be a good thing for you. So what are some of the red flags that investors, that might cause an investor to say, you know what, this is not for me? If they see too many founders, and too many founders in the sense that there's maybe I've started a business with 5 of my girlfriends, and there's really and really I have really great knowledge, and one of my other girlfriends might have really great knowledge, but the other 3 are kind of there just because they're good friends, and they were kind of involved with us. Well, maybe they shouldn't be founders. Maybe they should be employees. So that concept of too many founders, the investors don't like the proverbial too many cooks in the kitchen. If your business has high costs associated with it, so if they see high salaries or expensive overhead, that's a sign that you're not using the money that you have wisely and that you're not going to use their money wisely. Founders who alternatively have other jobs or no other sources of income. So, they want it, your potential investor wants to see that you're placing focus on the company that you want them to invest in. But they also want to see that you're placing focus, but you have some other source of income, whether it's a spouse, whether it's investment money, whether there's somewhere you've saved up, but they want to see something. Another red flag is bad credit, bad business credit or bad personal credit on your behalf. Weak marketing plans. So a marketing plan that does not clearly demonstrate that you understand how to communicate the benefits of your product and service to your customer and that there is a viable market. Investors don't like too much optimism. And you have to remember that the investor's point of view is that they're pessimists. Entrepreneurs tend to be glass half full kind of people. Investors tend to be glass half empty kind of people. And so you need to tamper down that excitement that everybody in the world is going to want your product or the total market is the market, because that's not necessarily the case. Claims of having no competition. Again, that pessimist investor is looking to poke holes in your concept, and they really want to see that in your due diligence process and in your business plan, you have identified the risks and you have articulated how you're going to take on and manage that risk. Asking for too much or too little capital. Generally, investors are knowledgeable in specific industries, so they know what's appropriate. For example, if I'm going into the restaurant industry, a restaurant investor is going to know what's appropriate in the restaurant industry for the style and the type of restaurant you might want to open. Poor use of previous funds. So if you've already had a round of investment or you've already obtained a loan, they want to know why you need more. And hopefully it's for a good reason and not because you squandered it. They don't like seeing that a potential founder doesn't have skin in the game, that there's no investment. And then they also don't want to see poor motivation for fundraising. When Groupon went public several years ago, they asked for over $1 billion, and most of that money was going to be used to cash out the founders. So Groupon had a very hard time selling to investors. Oops, not quite the end yet, folks. So Groupon had a very difficult time selling to investors because it was very clear that the founders just really wanted to get out of the business. And so because of that, Groupon did not have a very successful initial public offering. So those are the red flags, and now I can come to the end slide. So you will find your assignments in Canvas. I'm going to add some resources for you. Take a look at the videos, the readings, and take a look at that resources page, because I'm putting really important links there that may not necessarily help you to complete the assignment this week, but they're certainly going to help you with your funding plan, and they're certainly going to help you as you progress as an entrepreneur.